watching right now, and you saw this yesterday, as soon as Susan Necheles got up there and she had this rapid fire kind of questioning for Madeleine Westerhout, they are trying to basically use her as a witness for them, to make her effective, to downplay that this wasn't, all that unusual, that Trump was, a million people were calling Trump when he was in the White House, that he felt the need to call them back, that it wasn't that intentional, that he wasn't seeking out Alan Weisselberg or Michael Cohen, just kind of saying, well, everyone was there and it was crazy and this was all happening at once.
Exactly. It was crazy might be their best defense. And right now they're also kind of juxtaposing what it's like to be in the private sector versus the federal government, right? Things don't move quickly. Now, Westerhout said of personal mailing issues, I don't know what it was like in other administrations, but I can't imagine it would have been any different. Again, the slow pace with which you can receive something once it's sent. I think overall she's been decent for the defense. She said if he had the time when you gave them to him, he would sign the checks right away. Necheles is asking if he signs the checks immediately. Of course, this is really the most critical part of anything she has said. She's been helpful in that she's talked about how much she enjoyed working for him, how much he adored his wife. But the issue of the checks, if he had the time and if he was in the office, yes, she says, of Trump signing the checks. Any knowledge she has about these checks, this is actually getting to the material that he is charged with, right? The alleged falsifying of business records. This, whatever she says about this, matters.
Well, but she's trying to... Susan Necheles is really something to watch as she's questioning these witnesses, because the prosecution asked her about her being known as the greeter girl when she was in the transition period. At Trump Tower, she'd go downstairs and greet whoever Trump was coming to meet. And just to note, Necheles asked whether Trump was signing hundreds of documents a day. She testified not always, but the question was, would you see him signing things without reviewing them? Yes, Westerhout says, and that is critical testimony, because that may give that reasonable doubt, which you were saying all they need is a hung jury. That's really what they view as a win here. If that can provide that reasonable doubt to these witnesses, or to the jury. But I think the question is, Michael Cohen's going to get up there and say he knew exactly what he was signing.
Exactly. But, again, this is reasonable doubt. So we saw this with McConney and this idea that the Trump administration, or excuse me, the Trump organization was very detail oriented, that Donald Trump had his fingers in everything until he became president. Then it was a picture of chaos. That's what the defense did. Now what the defense is doing is exactly the same thing, but on the other side. They're saying that, yes, they came from Trump organization. When they got to the White House, who knew what was going on? There were people in and out of his office. Yes, of course he was signing stuff without looking at it and not reviewing it. Now, when it comes to Michael Cohen, I mean, this is what I mean when we are talking about Donald Trump's Republican allies kind of trying to rip him apart. What the defense, as you have said, is preparing to do in terms of saying he's a not reliable witness. If the entire case hinges on Michael Cohen, the question is, will the jury believe him? And the defense's job is to say no.
And this update, Susan Necheles is asking her, you would see him signing checks while he was on the phone. Westerhout said yes. She had just asked, he's a person who would multitask. I mean, she is basically trying to paint for the jury a picture of Donald Trump on the phone, just signing checks and not really paying attention because he's having a conversation, he's doing this, and he's running the country as the president of the United States.
Yeah.
The question is how effective this is with the jury. You would see him signing checks while he was meeting with people. Westerhout says yes.
Really effective, really helpful testimony for the defense, because the crux of their defense is he wasn't paying attention. He was the leader of the free world. He wasn't necessarily paying attention to what exactly was happening with every invoice, how Michael Cohen was being paid. They will also argue that Michael Cohen was his longtime lawyer. Was it that strange for him to have a retainer? No, and that Trump, at this point, he was in the White House. He was not deep in the weeds of exactly what was going on in terms of how Cohen was being reimbursed. So all these little nuggets from her, these are really helpful to the defense. The big question is, how does it resonate with the jury?
Well, and what's the prosecution sitting there thinking as she, I mean, they'll get a chance to question her again after this, after Susan Necheles is done, but if you're a prosecutor and you're sitting there listening to this line of questioning, it's not helpful to you.
No, and I would get back up and I would probably go back to her testimony about how detail-oriented he was, how invested he was still in his business, how attentive he was to invoices, generally speaking, how attentive was he to the task of being the president. Go back to that. This is also why we keep hearing from publishers and getting excerpts of books about how important it is to watch every dime, watch every penny. But again, I go back to Jeff McConney's testimony where he says, yes, that was true until 2017.
And the one thing I do want to point out, I mean, yes, I know that this is at the heart of the case, but I do think that her testimony in general helps the defense because it softens Donald Trump. I mean, look at the witnesses that we've had so far. The kind of seedy underbelly that Donald Trump was associating with, or associating maybe through Michael Cohen with. Then you have the Access Hollywood tape. Then you have this alleged affair in graphic detail with a porn star. Now you have somebody saying that they loved their wife, that Donald Trump loved his wife, that she loved him.
I mean, she cried at one point yesterday talking about when she left the White House, it wasn't on favorable terms because she had said some unseemly things about Trump's family, and off-the-record dinner that with reporters she thought that got reported. I mean, she broke down in tears and also talked about how she wrote a book because she thought Trump was mistreated. I mean, she was a character witness for him, basically.
Exactly. And that's what I think, we can take out the obvious stuff that is happening right now, which is really critical to the case, but also ultimately a jury is going to decide this. And if there are some humanizing moments for Donald Trump in a seedy case about an alleged affair cover-up with a porn star, that's...
And Paula, Susan Nicholas is taking that invoice yesterday that Rona Graff sent to basically show that Trump was still involved. She sent this invoice to Trump, basically saying, you're president, do you still want to pay this golf club membership and the food minimum, or do you want to see if I can delay it 4 to 8 years? And Donald Trump said, pay in Sharpie on it, okay, ASAP. And now Susan Nicholas is trying to downplay and say he wasn't really thinking about this. But it did go to show that Rona Graff felt the need, someone who worked with Donald Trump for decades, felt the need to check in with him about a golf membership while he was the president.
Yeah, and it shows the extent of her responsibilities, right? Everything from helping with the business to helping with a golf club membership. But here, I think this is pretty powerful. He just answered one word, pay. Boom, it was off his desk. And that's what the defense attorneys want to portray, that he was just signing these checks to Michael Cohen. Boom, get it off my desk. Just get this out of my way. I'm busy doing other things. So I think that this version of events, I mean, this is helpful to the defense because it's all about just doubt, right? It's still reasonable doubt. And it's up to the prosecutors to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, that he knew that he was falsifying business records to cover up another crime. That is a high bar, and it's not clear they've done it so far. And again, if she's doing anything, she's probably helping the defense.
And she's going through every single line of questioning that the prosecution asked her. I mean, right now, this is... People may be reading this and thinking, why is a Tiffany frame being brought up? But
Again.
There was an email where they needed a frame for a picture of Trump's mother, and Rona Graff was saying, well, I can go to Tiffany's and buy one, but they're $650 with a 10% discount. Do you want to check with him if he wants to spend that much? While he is president, they're checking to see if he wanted to spend that much for a frame. And Nicholas is noting that Westerhout said yesterday they made the executive decision to just buy it without checking with him. But the prosecution's point was they felt the need to check with him.
And look, this is true still today. I mean, Donald Trump is, yes, you mentioned Susie Wiles, the effective campaign manager or co-campaign manager. But big decisions for the campaign are currently go through Donald Trump. I mean, when there's something big to comment on, they don't send something out unless Donald Trump has looked at it or unless he wants to send it out. I mean, we know that to be true. He is detail-oriented, and he does believe that he should have final say in all of that.
And she's saying, Nicholas is questioning Madeleine Westerhout, saying, when President Trump was in the White House, you understood he was too busy to be dealing with this kind of thing? She says yes. How does that resonate? We don't know what the jury is thinking, but she's saying Rona Graff may have asked about the cost of the frame, but that was more about her comfort than Trump's need for approval. I mean, she is trying to eviscerate every single line that the prosecution, every inch of ground that they made with her.
Rona Graff is not comfortable spending the president's money, right? Westerhout said now that she spoke with Trump after the article about Stormy Daniels. Now we're getting into Stormy Daniels. But to this larger question of whether he knew what he was signing, the jury's going to have to weigh what he had said about himself and everyone said about him before into the White House, which is he's always in the weeds. Everything goes through him. He is the mastermind. There's no way something happens without his knowledge, to what happens after 2017. And is it cross-examination is now over. They're expected to call another witness. Well, I guess they'll probably do redirect. But after her, I think another witness, lesser known, just someone to help get in evidence. All of this really building to Michael Cohen. But the jury's, look, they're just going to have to weigh these two portraits of Trump. The one the prosecution puts forth, that he's put forth about himself. And then this one that the defense argues is what he was like in 2017. And that's why I keep going back to Jeff McConney's testimony, because I think it was one of the most important lines in the entire case so far. He says yes, and then everything changed once he went to the White House. Does the jury believe that? I don't know.